Okay, for people joining this live stream, we are looking at some features for version 12.2 of Wolfram language, features related to cryptography. And in particular, we're looking at PEM files. And the question is, so a PEM file is supposed to be a permissions file that is going to be used for a variety of purposes, right?
Daria, it's more than that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a file can contain a lot of cryptographic data, but it can also contain arbitrary data. But it is largely used for storing and exchange of keys and security certificates in the all private key infrastructure parts of things.
Okay, so how does it relate to our existing secured authentication key? How does it relate to this?
Well, Daria, it doesn't. It relates to security certificates. Yeah. It relates to private keys, public keys.
I know, but this has that as well, right? This has private and public keys as well. It happens to be mostly OAuth related, but that was intended that this would be a more general construct.
I don't think the authentication key is ever stored in the file, and we are talking about importing existing files.
Okay. Do I need? Let's open this PEM format. Where's format pages? Format page.
Lower. It's about 10 down. Yeah.
Okay, so we got a bunch of weird background noise, by the way, here.
I'll go on mute.
I've still got background noise, so it's not you. Okay. Okay, so I don't understand. This is importing from a PEM file and just returning a public key. I'm very confused.
This is a PEM file that contains a public key.
But how structured are PEM files?
They have a well-defined standardized structure. So for the RSA, this would be first thing type goes to RSA, public modulus goes to this sort of thing.
Okay, but why are we returning this in a, I'm very confused here. If we have something,
a PM file is one or more has one or more sections that are on the left. You can see it like it has a begin and an end section, and then there can be different things. So that it can start with a private key, and then it can have a public key. It can have a security certificate or 10 security certificates.
What?
And it can have things that we don't support yet. In which case, they're sort of like
Okay, but does each kind of thing that it has have a title?
Yes.
Do you understand what I'm saying? So
Yep.
we should probably have it return an association where the keys are the titles of those different sections, so you can access them.
Yeah, there is an import element for that. So like there would be an import element called raw data that is going to return that association without any wolframizing. But
Okay.
because we could use it as public key, the default we decided.
Well, can we? I mean, but if we don't even know the format and it's coming in a list, it's not going to work. It's just I'm sure if we feed this to encrypt, it's not going to work because of that list, for example.
No, it is going to work.
So it returns a list of the elements, right? So the output here could have been, the first element could be a public key. The second element could have been a security certificate. Like look at the second example, right? That's a list of two things because that has the client.pem file has two of those sections in there, and then it's up to the user to decide, okay, I need the private key or I need this security certificate.
Yeah, but my question is this: are they picking it by saying cases of this underscore security certificate, or are they picking it because because there is one security certificate there and that is a named element of the PEM file? Or can a PEM file contain 17 security certificates?
It can, yeah.
It can, yeah.
So it's just a bag of stuff where each individual piece is defined.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. So we return it as a list. I think if I understand you correctly, we could return it as an association with maybe some sort of.
Well, if it has titled it with something, if it has if there are titles within the PEM file,
but they're not unique.
Well, if a file contains 10 certificates, it would make no sense to put them in a session, but it makes sense to put them in the list.
Okay, all right, I get it.
Because
okay, so walk me through. Okay, so all right. Well, so let's look at the next piece of this. Okay, so by the way, have you edited the guide page at this point?
Not yet, because we wanted to settle down on names first.
Okay.
And I think you're not looking at the source guide page here either. So
no, I'm not. I'm not. So let me look at security certificate as well. This sounds like a sensible thing for us to have, but now in its C also, where does it have? Shouldn't it be pointing at the keychain stuff as well?
It could.
It could, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Make a note of that, yeah.
Well, I'll just change it. And by the way, isn't there a new way to specify formats in here? How do you do that in the C alsos? There's a new way
it does it automatically.
Okay. All right. Okay. Okay. What is the what is it called? What do you what is the
system credential you mean, or?
Oh, system credential. Yeah.
I think right. It's the system credential. Yeah. There's a couple of those functions, but system credential is the main one, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Because that seems relevant to security certificate.
It is. Yeah.
Okay. Issued for a public key. So do these agree with the things that we're using inside the main cryptography?
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, so if I take the public key from a security certificate, okay, so can I read, okay, next question. When I'm reading certificates from a website, from HTTPS, for example, how do I import, can I get the security certificate for our, for Wolfram.com or something? How do I get that? From URL read or whatever else? Is there a way to get that?
There is not a way to get yet from URL read, but you can import it from the browser, save it on a file, and import here.
That is planned, though. That's something we need to work with.
You see, there is a featureized cell there that says from URL execute. It's just not.
Oh, I see.
Yet.
Okay. All right.
But you in a browser, you can manually download the certificate, and then you can, run it through the paces to get it in the Wolfram language.
So in other words, what it will look like in the end is URL certificate, URL execute or URL read of a website, comma, security certificate, and then the return value will be the symbolic security certificate. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be.
I don't know what the shortest path is at the moment to go from a browser certificate.
Okay, when you say digital signature here, it's returning a digital signature object. Is that correct?
Yes. And you can actually verify it with verified digital signature.
That's cool.
And also,
put it in your cryptography course, page. Daria. This is going to be a good section in your cryptography course.
I am going to do that. Yes. There is an example on this page in the scope that says the whole process of verifying. Oh yeah, this one.
Cool. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. I'm sold on the security certificate thing. Okay.
And just in the documentation, that table is in the order that those, the certificates come in. So the table is in a very specific order that it needs to be in. Like it comes like that. It's intentionally not alphabetic or in a different order. Just that.
I understand.
That's the right thing to do here.
Okay. But now, how do I get out the full association?
It's
parameters.
Yeah, parameters.
Just below the table.
All right. Okay. I mean, maybe all could do that as well, or normal of security certificate.
Like normal of security certificate right now just normalizes the association inside, and so normal was not the best.
Okay, well, I don't think that's not obvious. That's a good idea anyway. All right,
let's not at normal too much already.
Okay, let's look at this is a weird thing.
Well, this is not related to PEM, like really.
I know it isn't, but it's a weird thing anyway. Why do we need this?
Well, we want to be able to. Sorry.
Yeah, so like for the version 12, we have supported only one curve so far, which is the CCP256. Now we can support more, and we will need more for example, for blockchain implementations. And it's nice to provide the user with a list of possibilities of the curves they can use.
All right.
I mean, there are like 100 of them, Stephen, and we don't support all of them. You know, we previously we only supported one. Now we support 6 or 7, right? We're going to add more, the important ones.
Right. Okay.
But
also, in signatures and certificates, there is a parameter. You actually specify which curve is used, and so it may specify a different curve.
Okay. Listen, I think these names should be turned into our versions of these names with capital P's and so on.
Yes, we talked about it, but these are standard, and that's how people recognize them.
Well, many things. I mean,
it's hard to sort of like turn it into
if you change the name, it will be hard to match it with the standard one, because.
But what about capitalization? Does anybody care about capitalization?
I mean, we could do capitalization because we could just do 2 lowercase and that's fine. But then prime, those first 2 curves, we're going to have only P capital. Then the last curves are going to have all the CEC capital because that's an abbreviation.
Also, if you capitalize, there is no order in how the names are spelled in various places. So some of them are capitalized, some are not.
these are pretty technical details. I'm not
if
sure.
you normalize them to some standard like camel case, it is hard to match the one that is here because there is no actual description of the curve except the name that would characterize it exactly.
Okay, if I look up this curve on the web,
yeah,
am I going to find it lowercase everywhere? Let me find out.
Yeah, everywhere.
Well, except that, you know, I love the way you say that. I just love the way you say that.
On the wiki capitalizes it.
Yeah. Just to be clear, this is the output that you get from OpenSSL, dash option curve names, I think. So it's kind of there it is.
And
these are all.
This page you're looking at is the actual standard that has introduced this curve. So they are sort of the owners of the name.
Well, so how do they name it?
Lowercase.
It will be an exception to all of our naming conventions.
Some names are even weirder. They contain underscores and, yeah, even weirder things.
There must be other places where we just have kept the original, sort of the.
You know what? I would go for it if we called this cryptographic elliptic curve names.
Okay.
It is a list of names, yeah.
Okay, so let's.
Okay,
we could
then
have
in
some
this way
function.
we could have also parameters in a different symbol at some point.
I'm sorry, say that again. What?
If we call this names, it's fine because then we can have another symbol that's going to have parameters if we want to introduce them, for people
yes,
to use.
By the way, I see on our live stream is asking about curve 25519.
We are actually going to have it soon because we are starting a partnership with a blockchain that works on it. So we're going to add it, but probably after 12.2, we're going to have a pocket update with that curve.
Wow. Okay. It's like fine wines or something.
Maybe we need a function that would basically convert names into parameters and maybe dig it down.
That sounds overly. I think this is fine.
Okay.
And we did talk with the special functions people initially. We just thought about calling it elliptic curve names, but
Elliptic
clearly
curve.
want to make it
They
more
don't want
specific.
that. Yeah, they don't
Yeah.
want that because that's a whole different thing.
Yeah, so we made it specific to be, dollar cryptographic.
I think that's the right thing. Go ahead, what?
A lot of people, this is a bit of a technical detail, but it's useful for, people that really know, right? All these curves.
Even the fact that we have even one person on our live stream who's asking after a particular curve, that's a good sign.
Yeah, probably we saw this name, but we don't support it currently.
Well, Darius says it's coming.
Okay.
So, okay, let's go back to the PEM object thing. Okay. All right. What on earth is this creature?
This is sort of a zoo of everything that a PM file can have that is not a private key, public key, or a security certificate that we don't have a head.
Why don't we just return it as an association?
Because there are files that can have, if you scroll down on the cryptography review notebook, there is an example of a file in the design notes of the agenda that has a key, a certificate, and a PM object in the same file. And this was the initial decision to have a separate head for this, because then this last output.
What is a PEM object? Define a PEM object.
It is some object like private key or certificate or anything else that we don't have a head for. We cannot compute, so we just return it as an object. We can parse it, we can extract things, but we don't promise anything to be computable.
But I understand that. By the way, somebody is asking, what's the timeline for release of this library? Well, all the cryptography stuff in Wolfram language has been there for, lots of it has been there progressively. When did we start adding this stuff? Like 5 years ago?
I think version 10.
Okay. Let's look in crypt. Probably says 2015. I was right, 5 years ago. Yes. But the stuff we're discussing right now is going into version 12.2, which is its code officially froze yesterday. So we are doing bad things by changing anything here. Okay, so I'm still trying to understand, where would you use a PEM object? I mean, I understand that you want a container for random gunk that came in from an import. But I mean, we have, just to give you an analogy, when we import EXIF data from an image, we don't have an EXIF object head. Well, we just bring it in as an association.
We talked about it with Sean Sheeran from the import group, and I think we arrived on this because it was an analogy to the XML object. It's just sort of a general, holder thing for things that don't, that we don't have anything else for yet.
So it is basically, if you know what your file consists of and you know what to do with PM object, then you can work with it.
But who consumes a PEM object?
Right now, no one.
Okay, so
but
what good is it doing?
You can extract fields from PM object. Yes.
It comes from the import, yeah. Like the PEM file may have 20 security certificates, right? 20 private keys, and one thing that we don't really have a good way of representing, and so then that's just the PEM object. It's the general case that I mean, this file format is just very general.
So hold on. The file has a title for each section and contents for each section. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay.
And the contents we can parse, so we can.
Okay, can we parse 100% of the contents? In other words, there's a limited grammar of possible contents for the sections of the file. Is that true?
No. It can contain anything.
What do you mean it can contain anything? It can contain a picture of a smiling lizard or something.
Yeah, you can encode it into PM object, yes, into PM file.
And the thing is, for example,
yeah.
If you're looking at the private key file in the PM object, it's going to be a title begin private key, And then there is going to be a list of integers. And because the structure is standardized, we know that the first integer is a modulus, then the second integer is the exponent, then the third integer is the factor.
Okay, all right, fine.
And
But
that is standard. But for a random PM file, it's going to say begin something.
okay, and what do we return the thing as? Are we returning this as a byte array, or are we returning it as text?
No,
is it ASCII?
We parse it into components. It has.
No, but Daria is saying that there are things which are not okay. In the case of, is this a key? When it says EC private key, is that when it says begin title? Could I say begin lizard here instead?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. But this thing here, begin EC private key, is that something special?
Yes.
Okay. How many of those special things are there?
Around 20.
Okay. How many of those 20 things can we parse?
A lot. Like we could parse EC private key, RSA private key, just private key.
Okay, fine. And we parse them into things like security certificate.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Is that correct?
Yeah,
yes.
Into some structure.
And then, yeah.
Okay. Now, what you're concerned about is things that have a title but are unparsable by us. Is that correct?
Yes, but also things like that are parsable to some extent, but we don't have a head for.
Do you have a...
Like what?
On the PEM object documentation, there is content types included.
Okay, so here's what I suggest we do. We do not want to have at this PEM object thing. It's just too weird. It's what I think we should do is something where if you say it's going to be this random list of things that we can parse, things we can't parse, what you're talking about is an import of a PEM file, right? By the way, if I just go to the web and I find a random PEM file.
Oh, let me correct a little bit. We can parse it, but we get a tree of bunch of integers and strings. We cannot interpret it into a meaningful structure.
I understand. How do I do a search? Let's see. Is it called file type? How do I do a search for?
Search for PEM example file, maybe. No.
No, I'm saying, isn't there a type arrow PEM or something I can search for?
Type colon.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Well, whatever.
I can put something on the Zoom chat if you're just looking for something. Like you're just looking for a random thing, right?
I'm looking for a random PEM file that I can just import.
So if you look at the Zoom chat, this is literally the first one I found, so I don't know what it is.
But no, I want something which is called PEM, where I can say import of the thing with a PEM.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you can just do import string on that, right? I mean, on the thing, you just copy and paste the thing and use import string on that.
Yeah, import string works.
Okay, all right. So I have this pile of random gunk here,
right?
And I can say import string of this pile of random gunk,
right?
Comma PEM.
Yeah.
It has 3 dots in the middle. It's not a full file. It has this ellipsis in the middle of the file.
Sorry, that's my bad. Okay, let me keep looking.
Your message should be better.
Oh yeah, that's. Mm-hmm.
I don't know what import usually does, but
well, we have agreed on this messages with import group. The thing is that some of these objects may fail, but some may not.
Okay, so another issue is these comments in the PEM file. Those are comments in the PEM file, presumably.
Anything except the blocks, I ignored all the lines. So they can take comments about the certificate or anything. Yeah.
Okay, but so this format -- begin blah blah blah. Look.
Standard. Mm-hmm.
What I suggest doing is that what comes in is you've got a list, security certificate, blah, 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 digital signature, whatever things there are. I mean, it's a pity that you lose the comments. but whatever. And then when you have an unknown one, what you do is you say title, blah, 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 content, blah, 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 blah. And if we can do better than that, great. But
that's going to be varied for both, right? I mean, that can be pages and pages, so it's going to be uneven with the other ones.
So the structure here is different. You cannot map a function over it because security certificate wraps an association. So it's a two-level thing.
I know.
And the third element is a session directly. So
look, this is a bad idea, okay? You know, how many formats do we have? 500? How many formats have their own special wrapper to, you know, like HDF, for example? You can put all kinds of random junk into HDF, okay? We do not have an HDF object wrapper that says, put your random junk in here. See, if we can't do anything with it, I mean, arguably, the default import for a PEM file for us should only import the things that we can understand. And there can be an element that gets you other stuff as well, but I just don't see this. I don't think it's a good idea.
okay, his alternative approach is to have a generic head which is common for all import, like imported object. Or
well, that's fine. Yes, but I mean, we've never done that. It's not a bad idea. I mean, that is a perfectly reasonable idea. But can we get somebody from the import-export team here and let's talk about that? I don't think that's a bad idea. I just don't want to see...
Sean Sheeran, for whoever's trying to...
Yep, I'll try to get someone.
So basically what goes inside, we don't make any promises, but here you go.
Yeah, like
Okay.
here's the
Well, I think what we would do with imported
bytes,
object is we
whatever
would
you
say it's PEM, you know, what we would say is, you know, something like the
original format.
right. I mean, we could just say imported object. Yes, that's a reasonable thing. Original format, PEM, you know, raw data, blah, 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 whatever it is. And it might have to be a byte array.
That is good because raw data is a property for all the other things. So that would...
Yeah, like many formats have raw data.
Yeah.
Like ML formats, HDF.
Well, so what the point of this thing would be, the point of it would be to have something where, I mean, if the whole of what's being imported is unknown to us, this doesn't do us much good. You might as well say import, you know, the thing as a string, right? The case where this is relevant is a format which is a multi-part format, where some parts are understandable by us and some are not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? And that is a good general case. And I'm surprised we have not introduced this before. I don't have a problem with this. And then we could have a summary box for this and so on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. That's good.
That's fine by me.
There is a system function called raw data, but I don't think that's...
No, that's something completely different. That was a very early version 1 thing, which has not been, you know, which is now something, no,
yeah,
it's never been documented. Okay. All right. So then what we're doing here, all right, I'm happy with this. I think this is actually a good idea. And I think there are probably a bunch of other places, like I think in some mail formatting stuff, that's something we could potentially use.
Mm-hmm.
I think like
yeah,
there's
our
a
problem to introduce a
format.
head initially was, you know, for cleanliness and elegance.
No, I think it's a good idea. But so let's do it more generally.
Mm-hmm.
All right. What else do we have to figure out here? We have to, I mean, we might as well edit the guide page while we're at it. And then I will be happy to depart here. Okay, did you already have proposed edits on here? Where does this go? Wait a minute. So first of all, there's Boy, aren't there other file formats? What would you?
So there is a commented out thing. It's besides PEM, there are a few other extensions that are actually same format.
Yeah, because PEM can be files .key, .crt, .cer, and we can import those too. Because the thing is that they have to be PEM encoded. They don't have to be .pem specifically.
Good. But we don't export yet, right?
No, we
Daria?
don't export yet.
So we need to fix that. Import keys from, not import and export.
Okay. Well, also there's import string, which could be useful to people. That seems to be probably formatted wrong. Okay, so now this is key management. But now where should certificates go? Where do security certificates go? Do they go under digital signatures?
Under key management as well. Because a security certificate says that you are the owner of this public key.
Okay. So I should put this under here. Security certificate here.
Yeah, that's correct. Mm-hmm.
So what is this? This is representation. That's not very exciting. It just say representation of a security certificate. But can I define that? What's that?
Or a public key certificate.
Public key security certificate. I mean, it's really okay. All right, that was easy enough. Okay, now on this page, we're pointing to system credential. I assume you pointed back from public key back to security certificate, yes?
I hope so. I don't remember.
But you didn't.
Oh,
okay, where should it go in that list?
Maybe
where should it go?
Before generate digital signature.
Before encrypt, decrypt, I guess.
Definitely not. Before encrypt and decrypt, definitely not.
Oh, no.
I mean, should we put system credential on this page? Is that relevant for storing? I think it's relevant for storing these keys, isn't it?
It is relevant. Yeah.
Maybe we should put it before Euler-Phi. Okay, and that means also in private key, we should also put system credential for sure. Private key, we should put the PEM thing and system credential, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Is it relevant for, none of these things are relevant for encrypt and decrypt. They're always, but what about digital signature? Isn't it relevant to that? Verify digital signature, shouldn't that point to security certificate?
Yeah, they could.
Tell me where.
Before hash.
Mm-hmm.
I let you guys figure out if there are other cross-references here.
Yeah, we'll go, like, before we release it, we'll go through all these older pages, you know, and update the examples. Like,
okay.
what we could do.
Cryptographic elliptic curves. Does that want to go? Boy, that's a...
That has to go to generate asymmetric, maybe, key pair.
Well, it also goes under cryptographic number theory, I would assume.
Well, yeah, that's relevant.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Where?
In key generation.
Okay. Something like that.
Yeah.
Okay. And does that need to cross-link? Well, you'll put in those cross-links.
Yeah, I
All
have
right.
already put in like generate a symmetric key pair that like you can obtain the list of supported curves by.
Okay. All right. Anything else we need to do in this meeting?
Sean is here. I don't know if we want to continue with that part of the conversation.
Yes, let's just check that. Okay. Pem files are long sequences of random blocks of stuff. Some of those blocks of stuff we don't understand. Sean, are you here just to, I'm not talking to nobody.
Yep.
The concept is to introduce a new symbolic head called imported object that is for sub-pieces of imports that we don't understand. Do you understand what I mean?
Sort of. I thought that we'd already addressed that by introducing a generic like PEM object thing.
We're not going to do that. We're not doing it.
That's exactly replacement for that.
We're not doing it. We don't want to have this for 600 formats or whatever, where each 500, whatever we're at right now, where every single one has a, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
You just want to have a general, right? A general
Right,
one
because
thing.
because many of these formats here, I'm quite certain that, some like DICOM, I bet there's things in DICOM that are just weird, random things that come from a particular MRI machine that we can't import, right? But which we could store as an imported object. Does that make sense? Again,
Maybe. I think a lot of the metadata is things like, dates, strings, and other stuff. I mean, we maybe could have some kind of
no,
reference.
but the whole point, Sean, is this. There are things where it is a different branch. It is metadata. Okay,
Mhm.
though we can deal with that. The
Sure.
issue with PEM that is new and different is there's a sequence of similar things where it's like, okay, this one is good, this one is good, this one is good. Oh, whoops, this one is one we can't import.
But okay, so if we can't import it, why isn't it something like missing?
Because we can import it. We can import it as raw stuff.
Okay. So this is just some generic head for that kind of thing. What this also sounds like to me is the XML stuff.
It does.
XML object, XML element, which
needs to be modernized.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, those expressions themselves just grow to be so huge so quickly with large data.
I know. I mean, once we have the trees project done, that will flow into the XML thing well.
Okay.
But remember, this is different, right? XML, by its very definition, is some sort of very general format that we import, as a Wolfram language expression using XML object. You don't want to change that to imported object or something, right? It's just we need.
Well,
to have
I don't think so. I mean,
one-to-one
in the case of
correspondence.
XML, I think that there's more natural things like associations that could represent that stuff. And we need more efficient data structures is the important thing with XML. It's got to be efficient.
I know, but we do have 30 years of people with code that import XML, so you want to be careful about changing all that.
Right, I'm not saying necessarily to get rid of it, completely, but I'm saying to introduce new elements with more modern stuff that could actually be efficient.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we've got lots of stuff to do with XML, which we can do with trees. Sandra on our live stream is pointing out that the PEM file is a bit like importing a folder or a zip file. Yes, but in those cases we have file names, and so we can import an association that has distinct file names with each piece of result in it.
Well, and there's all kinds of other metadata in various zip and tar formats. Zip has a table of contents at the beginning of it and whatnot. The tar format has some information before each chunk of data.
Okay.
So I mean, they're different. I could see how you would think they're fairly similar, but so let's go back to this other thing. What is it called?
Imported object.
Okay, so what's inside of it?
An association that has a few standardized keys and a bunch of random keys. And right now we would use this only for PEM, but I think we'd end up using it for a bunch of other formats too. I vaguely remember the things in Mail where we needed this and we didn't have it.
So the thing is, we can read the data and we can parse it, but we don't know what it is.
But Konstantin, this is a very specific case.
Okay.
There are a sequence of blobs of data, some of which we can read and some of which we cannot read.
Mm-hmm.
That's the point. That's the case that's unusual. Usually it's either we can read it all or we can't read anything. Okay. There's a question here on live stream. Can you create your own parser rules as a user? Absolutely. You can do all kinds of stuff. Actually, we have a framework that is coming. Is it in this version? That is this user adding import export stuff. Is that Sean? You would probably know that.
Right. There's already the tutorials developing an import converter and developing an export converter. We are working on all of the internal utilities that would be needed to really make this robust enough to bump into system. I'm nearing the end of a long series of framework projects that are heading in that direction.
Okay, fair enough. All right, I think we have a solution here, and I think I need to go. So, thanks everybody. I will push these changes, and thanks guys. See you later. Thanks to folks on the live stream, and I think we have another live stream coming up. We have 2 more today. Oh my gosh, we have at 3:30 Eastern Time, we have my weekly science and technology Q&A for kids and others, and right after that we have a design review about geography and dates. So all sorts of interesting things. But before that, I have 2 other meetings about utterly different topics. All right.